Welcome to The Grand Balance, a biweekly podcast hosted by two working grandmas navigating the beautiful chaos of work and family. Hi, Sharon.
Hey, Angela, how are you?
I'm doing good today. Just real busy as
Yay.
usual.
This is a busy time of year with graduations and end of
Oh, yeah.
school and all these kind of celebrations.
I did get to have dinner with my husband last night, and I was telling them, okay, we have this, we have Father's Day, we have this other thing going on, we have that thing, and then we have that thing. So the social side is really good. It's fun. But coupled with all of the work, it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. It's my birthday's always right after Father's Day too, and this year I will be in Texas with my daughter and her family, and we're doing a baptism for the baby. So it's
Oh, lovely.
kind of a bunch of celebrations. Father's Day, my birthday, the baptism all rolled in one.
That's awesome. All right.
So,
So, I wanted to bring up a couple things as follow-ups to our prior episodes. So, the first is last week we had talked about the expert advice on how to handle toddler tantrums. And part of the advice was kind of just ignore their behavior until they realize that they just need to get better and on their own. So it was a big fat failure this week in my family. So I tried it with him by myself. And it actually, because we went to see a Dino Alive, it's like this dinosaur exhibit, which was actually too scary for his age. So we spent most time in the other area with coloring and stuff like that. But he threw this tantrum, took crayons away from somebody, and I tried to get him back, and he was holding tight and screaming. So I just said, okay. I took the baby to play in the sand and just left him alone, and it worked. He was laying on the ground throwing a tantrum, and I just walked away. And then he realized nobody's paying attention to him, so he came over and started playing. However, my challenge, I think I had mentioned, was at the dinner table when you have multiple adults around,
right.
big fat failure. We tried. We said, "Ignore it." He, like, tossed his plate, not tossed it, he slid his plate, like, "I'm not hungry." Started and usually we're like, "No, you gotta," we pay attention to it and try to get him to calm down. But we didn't. We ignored it, and boy, did he just yell a lot louder. And he looked at every one of us to try to get attention, and finally, we just couldn't handle it anymore. So we just said, "Fine." We gave him whatever, like, "I want this spoon. No, I want that spoon. No, I want that spoon." And it was driving us crazy. And so we started ignoring. And then, so I mixed reviews on that expert advice from the last time.
Well, I feel like it's a process too. It's a learned behavior. So he has to learn that by acting out like that, he's not gonna get the attention, and I think once that's reinforced several times, he's a smart kid, he'll get it.
Yeah, it's painful. It was very painful just for the first time. So I can imagine having to deal with multiple dinners, which is our joyous Thursday, right? That's the time to enjoy family. So to have to deal with that was a little tougher when we're trying to ignore it. And then it got worse. And then the second thing was I listen to a lot of podcasts when I walk and stuff. And I was listening to one, the New York Times does like investigative reporting, and they were interviewing this woman, an older woman, and we were talking about aging for the elderly and, how we can support them. And they they've been sending out these little robots. They're like little companion robots. It's by a company called Intuition. And there's these little robots for seniors to help them keep talking, keep using their brain and their mind, and keep engaging so they aren't as lonely. And I thought that was really cool. And there was this whole story about this woman who kind of lives remote. Her home is a little remote, and her kids are all away. And so she doesn't get a lot of visitors and things like that. And it really kept her engaged. At first she didn't want anything to do with it, but it was so friendly and it would wake her up in the morning. And so that was the good side. And it would say, "Where do you wanna visit today?" And it would show videos of all these different locations in the world, and so finally, got engaged, and she would say, "Let's talk a little bit," just to make sure that their mind was sharp and things like that. So that was really cool. But
It's
that
cool, but on another hand, really sad. No, I see the need. It's just sad that there's no human interaction available, so you have to resort to a robot, which I guess if there's nothing else there, that definitely better than nothing for sure.
well, and I don't wanna say there's no human interaction. This is more day to day. So you might have somebody come in once a week or she had to go to the store once a week, but it was really hard for her, right? Like they started bringing groceries and stuff like that. So she might talk to somebody periodically, but this is more between those times. How do you keep your mind sharp and keep things going?
Yeah,
Kind
I
of
mean,
staring at your computer, right?
yeah, and it's kinda crazy to think about. Hopefully, there's FaceTimes involved with actual human interaction too.
Would hope. Yeah, I don't
I
know. But I
I know
thought
it's food for thought for sure, yeah. I mean, times are changing whether we want them to or not, so
so it's in like pilot mode right now. So they're testing it with seniors. So this was kind of like early adoption. They're not like for sale or anything. They're still trying to learn. And they're using these people to help, as with AI, it learns, from
the interactions, yeah.
so that was the good part, I thought, like the positive aspects of it. The bad part was the son came one day and was saying, "You have to be really careful, mom, about like we can't talk we have to turn that off right now. We have to unplug it because we need to talk about your will. We need to talk about things with your financials. And you have to be really careful that seniors might start saying things that could risk their confidentiality, risk their finances, and things like that." So, again, just like with any other technology and what we're trying to teach our kids, you have to give that same level of diligence to your parents in helping them.
Yeah, true. Speaking of apps, I haven't tried this, but I'm wondering if you've heard of it. Have you heard of the Speechify reading app?
No.
I haven't either, but I am going to try it. You can scan any book or choose from, I guess, a vast library, and it just reads whatever book, and you choose, like, whatever narrator you like, which I really find appealing because a lot of times on audiobooks, if the narrator turns me off, it's like an instant no for me. So I thought this was kind of interesting, and it also kinda goes along with seniors too, because if they are having problems reading, this might be a solution to that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's the same as Audible or whatever, except you get to choose your reader, right? Because you still have
Correct, or you can scan anything you have already, and it just, like, picks it up from what you like, so if you had a book, like, you had started and didn't finish and you were wanting like, let's say you were sitting reading and then you wanted to do dishes and do something around the house, you could then scan it and it would just start reading to you so you didn't physically have to hold the book.
Oh, that's cool. I agree with you on
Yeah.
the narrator. Sometimes they're too dry. So,
I know, or if the voice is annoying. A lot of I mean, sometimes with nonfiction, it's nice to have the narrator be the person that wrote the book. But then I have had other books where the narrator has, like, a super drony, boring voice. So, yeah. Anyway, I was just curious because I'm gonna see how well it works. I just didn't know if you'd tried it or not.
no, I haven't. Although I have to say, when you talk about voices of the narrator, so I did just listen to a new book and I went through it so fast because I loved it so much. It's the joint effort between Viola Davis. Do you know who Viola Davis is?
Yes.
Yeah, she's an amazing actress. And James Patterson, who's a really great author.
Author, right.
And they came together and they did a book. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because Viola Davis is a step grandma, and she talks a lot in other podcasts. She's talked about that in her relationship with her husband and the children and stuff. So, yeah, so cool new book. It was called Judge Stone, and it kind of is along the lines of A Time to Kill or To Kill a Mockingbird, kind of that type of genre or storytelling, but it's today's time.
Oh,
It's
cool. Yeah, it's
A in this
it's
house. So it's very interesting. But it's her voice, she did it, and she's plays Judge Stone, and so it just that voice was really great for this book. So I'm glad
yeah, no, it's exactly my point. It's usually when the person that has written it or is in the book does it, it's usually much better.
yeah. So anyway, so those were the couple of things, as we go through these podcasts, I start thinking about, oh, in that episode we did talked about that and I just experienced this. So, it's good to always go back and kind of add to what we've been talking about over the last couple of years. So,
Yeah,
anyway, what do
totally
we have
agree.
on topic today?
Well, today, I read some research about the benefits to grandchildren from active grandparents in their lives. I think intuitively we know that it's good for both the grandparents and the grandkids, and I think we've talked somewhat about how it benefits us as grandparents, just staying more connected to the family. We have a greater sense of purpose. We keep our brain engaged and we're out on the floor playing with kids, so we stay more active. But we've never really talked about actual benefits to the grandchildren. There's a researcher named Neil Shea who researches intergenerational bonds and relationships, and he states that there are three things that grandparents can do for grandchildren that no one else can replicate. And I thought that was interesting because we haven't really talked about this much. The first thing is that research shows that grandparent involvement is directly linked to emotional development, cognitive functioning, and social adjustment that helps the grandchildren well into early adulthood. The unconditional love the grandparents offer creates a psychological safety net for children, which I can totally understand that.
Yeah, I think so too.
It brings me back to a memory I have. When I was in 3rd grade, we had gone to a school my mom worked at, and it was a private school. And we had moved into an area that had really good public schools. We moved there for that reason. And so we were transitioning from the private school to public school. It was definitely a financial decision, but also my mom wanted us in the neighborhood school with the neighborhood kids. And me being a 3rd grader was totally stressed out because the only friends I had ever known were the ones that I had gone to school with. So I had talked to my grandparents and I was all upset. And my grandma sat me down and said, "Try the school for a year. And if you don't like it, I promise you that we will pay for you to go back to the old school." And just like knowing that that opportunity was there suddenly, I felt so much more secure and less stressed out about it and went in with a much more open mind, knowing it wasn't like you have to do this or else type of thing. And I'll never forget the feeling that just because of that offer she made to me completely changed my experience about changing schools. And of course, I've, acclimated very well to the neighborhood school, loved it, never changed. But just having that little safety net of my grandparents saying, "We got your back. We'll we'll be there in case it doesn't work out." I'll never forget that feeling.
Yeah. And did you say the second half, it was emotional development, and what was the second? Social what?
Cognitive functioning and social adjustment.
Social adjustment. Okay, got it. Yeah, that's what you were talking about, the social.
Exactly, yeah, I think and it's just knowing that you have a place in the world that you're accepted.
Yep. I love that story.
So I thought that was very relatable. The second thing he says is research shows that grandparental care has a stronger effect than parental involvement on the children's vocabulary skills. Grandparents tend to have more time, more patience, and more stories to tell, and every hour spent talking, reading, or simply being together is building language pathways that shape academic outcomes for years.
I really could understand that one. So, it because the parents have to juggle so much, right? And usually if the grandparents are there, that they are way more focused, but I think also word choice too is something that's interesting when you talk about, like, language skills, and I have an example. So, I say, "Yes," and the kids, my children, will say, "Yeah." So then when he's with them, he'll say, "Yeah," and he'll say it, and I'm like, I'll say, "Yes." And so then his parents will say, "Did you teach do you use the word 'yes', huh?" And I said, "Yes." But there's so many times when he will say something and I will work with him to say it correctly because I have the time to do that, to your
Right, and I think too, just when grandparents are around children generally, of course, this is generally speaking, your focus is 100% on the children, whereas parents, you're being pulled in a million different directions.
yeah, while they're
You're
cooking dinner, while they're trying to, settle one child to while the other one's over here playing or, whatever.
right, prepping for the next day, doing I mean, there's just so much going on as a parent, which is, one of the most joyous parts of being a grandparent is you don't have all those stressors when you're with the kids as you did while you were raising kids. You don't have to worry about the dentist appointments, the doctor's appointments, the this, the that. You can just sit and enjoy. And I think, like you're saying, it's with the patience and time, it does make a big difference when communicating with kids from, babies to teenagers.
Yeah.
But yeah, also thought that was relatable. The third and final thing that they saw in the research, they say maybe the most important is a close relationship with a grandparent reduces risky behavior in teenagers. A lot of research shows that the grandparent grandchild bond has a potential to reduce smoking, drug use, and other dangerous choices in adolescence. Through this sense of being unconditionally loved by someone whose approval they deeply respect, it creates that reduction in risk. Time spent with grandparents can be one of the best investments in the child's future. Which I thought about that and thought, is this just one of those hokey research things they're trying to show? But to me, it definitely does make logical sense because with that bond, I think kids do live up to expectations. And I know, not that I never did anything wrong, because certainly I did, but to disappoint my grandparents would have deeply hurt me for sure.
I agree with that last part, that to disappoint your grandparents would deeply hurt you. I challenge the deterrent of it, though, really. I think I was my grandmother and I had such a strong relationship, but I still did really bad things as a teenager that I know I shouldn't have done and I would not have been proud of. And I know that many of my cousins who are very close as well would say that they've done things that they're not proud of. So I'm not sure about that. I think
Yeah,
I would want them to know. I think I'd love to see what's behind that research. Like, is it a percentage of how they even did that research for people being honest about what they really did? Or is it just that their grandparents never knew they did it?
right, which would be interesting to look, like you said, further into it. It gave me pause as well, but then I started thinking, I mean, certainly it can't hurt, and if it can potentially maybe deter some bad decisions, definitely something to think about. Yeah, something to think about for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it's true. I really do. Just my living experience is that I'm not sure how big of a deterrent that is to drinking with your friends at parties and smoking and all those sorts of things. Now, maybe the grandparent when they found out they discouraged it and then the kids felt guilty and they stopped or I don't know, but it'll be interesting. But regardless, I think there's just so many strong benefits of grandparents being involved.
Right, and both ways. I mean, that's the beauty of it. The grandparents benefit in so many different ways, and the grandchildren potentially benefit in so many ways. So definitely a win-win. And I think, like I said before, we all knew there was benefits, but it's interesting to see what some researchers have come up with as specific benefits.
Yeah. So, talking about the benefits to the grandparents, again, this is all research, but they've said that for grandparents, having involvement with the grandkids provides better mental health and lower depression, greater sense of purpose, better cognitive benefits because you use it or lose it,
Right.
more physical activity, and stronger social connections. And when I think about those five categories of benefits and myself, I absolutely agree that having grandkids has given me more physical activity. Ju
I was just gonna say that. That's the one I agree with the most because as we've talked about, spending I can spend 12 hours working solid and 4 hours playing with grandkids, and I'm way more exhausted after the playing with grandkids.
Oh, yeah, and it's just the simple things like muscles. I mean, my arms, for not lifting weights constantly, I am lifting 25 pounds at a time, sometimes in both arms, holding grandkids, while I'm holding one trying to get off the floor, and so you're just moving your body in so many different ways, things that you would not do
Right. Even
unless you
chasing
were.
them. Like, I'm like, "When was the last time I actually really ran like this?"
Oh, that's right, and sometimes it's not out of fun, it's out of necessity, right? You're like, they're running so fast down down the stairs or whatever, and you're having to catch them or whatever it is.
Yeah, when I was looking at the research too, the only one I question is the social interactions because I feel like I mean, I don't know, I feel like my social circle is based on my friendships. I think maybe if you did a lot of activities with grandkids, like bringing them to classes, you would meet new people, but I don't know necessarily they would be, like, within your friend circle. You would definitely meet other people, but that was the only thing I saw in that that I was kinda like, "Hmm." But the
Well,
physical
yeah, I think that
part
because and we've talked about this, you already have a really strong social circle. But I think for others that might not, I think this could be a benefit for them. Like you said, taking them to the library where all these other families are on that's what I do with them sometimes on Tuesdays where they have, story time and playtime and stuff like that. But I think it does in that regard, I mean, I thought of it differently. So I didn't think about it as external social circles necessarily. I felt more of like stronger family bonding time because let's say you have all adult children and none of them have kids, you may not get together as much compared to when children get involved. It kind of brings families together a little more.
No, it's true, and that's when we were just in Colorado for my niece's graduation, the beauty of it was staying in the Airbnb with my son, and he got so much interaction with the 2 little girls just by virtue of staying in the same place, and it was, you know, everything we did, we planned around, everyone was together the entire time, so that part of it, I agree with, is really, really nice.
Yeah, I mean, we've started these Thursday night dinners. Would we do it if we were all just adults living our own lives? Probably not. Not that we shouldn't.
Right, but it gives you a reason.
Gives us more of a reason. All the family events, like you had said earlier, I think when we were talking about your upcoming trip, it's for a baptism. So more people are coming for birthday parties, for other things that are happening surrounding the kids. I mean, just there's a little league by my house that I can walk to, and my cousins, I don't see them very often, but their little one started t-ball. And so now I go down there sometimes and I'll watch him play t-ball just to visit my cousins, which I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't have thought to visit them had there not been a child involved, honestly.
Right, no, it's true.
Yeah.
It
So,
definitely that's one thing I'm really grateful to that my family in general just shows up for whatever function, and even my young, not married son has flown for baby showers, baptisms, birthday parties, just that whole family unit. I'm so grateful that we've been able to keep that so strong and traveled far and wide to make those important milestones because it does mean a lot.
yeah. Yeah. So out of those 5, I do think I think they're all true. I think those are the 2 that resonated with me most. But then they say that and then they say, of course, there's statistics that show there are longevity benefits, but I think it's because of all those 5 things, right?
Exactly. And I mean, as we've talked about so many times, as grandparents, we have to be healthy. We have to be using our minds. We have to be getting the right amount of sleep. All those important things that when you are grandparenting, you're more conscious of staying healthy, doing those sort of things.
Yeah. The one word of caution, though, which was interesting as I was kind of researching this, is that they say the benefits are strongest when involvement is moderate.
I saw that too, which, I mean, that is kind of vague because moderate can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Well, what I was honing in on in the articles that I was reading was studies show that full-time caregivers, so grandparents are who are the full-time caregivers of the children while the parents are off to work, have higher rates of depression, more health problems, and greater caregiver burnout. So there is like a sweet spot where maybe you help watch them a few days a week, or maybe you don't have to watch them, but you see them a few days a week or, whatever, not the responsibilities of the everyday caregiving.
Right. Well, this is exactly what I was talking about. That's the beauty of it. And how, the heroes are the grandparents that have stepped up because that is really, truly difficult. But we are in a very fortunate position where we can be additions rather than the main event.
But I'm hearing so many people who are saying that my kids are planning to have babies and I'm planning to be the full-time caregiver. And I just am very hopeful that they'll think through that because they might not understand the amount of pressure or, and the impacts on the body and your mental health that can put on somebody.
And you don't want resentment to build up within the family either. Hopefully, in those situations, there's a lot of communication of how to make it work for everyone.
Yeah, and I think it's all with good intention. "Oh, I wanna
Right.
help my kids, so let me do this for them," thinking it's gonna be wonderful, but in reality, you still need, to your point, your friends. You still need to take care of your body. You still need your purpose outside of that and how your mind is, being worked, and it's something that I don't think people think enough of, and maybe they should.
Right. Well, and you need a reprieve from the kids too, because that's extremely demanding, as we know.
As we know in the few hours that we do spend with them that we've talked about, you
Exactly.
exhaust yourself. So, but
Yes.
you're meant to have children when you're younger and not our age,
I
so
know. I'm reminded of that all the time. I was like, thank goodness I was in my early 30s rather than later because it takes a lot of energy, but
it really
a fun time of life for sure. And I'm glad we are able to explore all these benefits because we know they're there, but now we know some of the actual specific benefits to us and to the grandkids that we are able to be around. Another point too is doesn't necessarily have to be grandkids. If people are in a part of life where they don't have grandkids, you can always get involved with other youngsters and help in those ways too and get a lot of the benefits. That was another thing I saw in the research. It doesn't have to necessarily be family. It can just be spending time with younger people that helps out your mind and body.
you're right about that because before my kids had my grandkids, I thought I was gonna retire early with my husband. I call it my 10-month COVID sabbatical. But I got so much out of the philanthropy that I was doing and the volunteering that I was doing with young people. It really was beneficial to me. It filled my soul. It gave me things to do. I still had to use my brain. So those cognitive benefits, it really helped with all the things that we just talked about as benefits.
Yep. So keep it up, grandparents. You're doing a good job. And in the end, it works out for everyone.
Yep.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we will be back in a couple weeks.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to the podcast so we can continue to grow our community. Also follow us on Instagram at Working Grandmas Podcast, on Facebook at The Grand Balance, a Working Grandmas Podcast, and join our LinkedIn group, Working Grandmas. You can also email us at info@workinggrandmas.com or message us through any of our social media platforms.